Man, why am I always so tired? I swear, when I was younger, I could run a circle for 3 days straight. Anyway, where are my manners? Hi, hello, how do you do, my fellow adults? Welcome back to another episode of Thoughts. I'm Joe Van, and energy input and output is a wild thing. Our bodies and brains are crazy how it all works. We go straight from growing to dying with our telomeres shrugging, saying, hey, at least you don't have a 3-year lifespan, like that game of Look How Worse It Could Be really works at being reassuring. If it's not bad enough, just look at our spines. How do we suspend ourselves with just our 2 feet? Boston Dynamics videos of their bipedal robots are a pretty one-to-one of our bodies, aside from their future potential to punch our spines out. But back to being tired. Let's have ourselves some gay old fun and check out the word energy and see how we use it. Energy, for humans, not physics, is the strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. And here I am, steadily in shorter and shorter supply of it. Fun thing to think about. We exist because life has encoded instincts in us to reproduce. It's the best way for life to go on, you see, by reproducing. I'm no quality of life design expert, but clearly not much else went into how we operate, aside from just enough mobility to survive a lion attack, and just enough an ability to socialize to do the deed. Sounds like we got a rough deal. It's like late-stage capitalism. The main goal is your money. With life, the main goal is your seed. In both cases, you're required to be motivated just enough to continue producing an income so that it can be expended for the glorious will of your overlords. Happiness need not apply. Just a stimulus like FOMO or straight-up delusions of grandeur that you too will be as joyous as a child if only you do what we want. Have I gone away from the subject? Pardon me. Energy, right. Well, it sure would be great if it was a bit more sustainable. There's no getting rid of the polar extremes, over-expenditure, or dwindling returns until lights out. But the middle of the line ought to take up the bulk of said line. Wouldn't you agree? It would have to come at the cost of other things, but if life could just hear me out, I think I have an amazing new model for energy expenditure. Let's pull the reins on energy output for kids to allow adults the ability to stretch without pulling something. If we just start off jogging instead of running, it could mean we would just stay that way our whole lives, greatly expanding our lives, for more potential kids or something. How's that for a pitch? Okay, now let's go over the real meaning of the word energy that y'all thought of from the top. As we understand and use the word, energy derives from the ancient Greek energia or lit, activity, operation, and so on, which possibly appears for the first time in the works of Aristotle in the 4th century BC. In contrast to the modern definition, energia was a qualitative philosophical concept, broad enough to include ideas such as happiness and pleasure. And as it turns out, it would take a very long time for its modern use to come about. The whole thing, energy, is more of an umbrella term anyway, so it makes sense. Let's start the mini-journey. In the late 17th century, Gottfried Leibniz proposed the idea of the Latin vis viva, or living force, which was defined as the product of a mass of an object and its velocity squared. He believed that total vis viva was conserved. To account for slowing due to friction, Leibniz theorized that thermal energy consisted of the motions of the constituent parts of matter, although it would be more than a century until this was generally accepted. In 1807, Thomas Young was probably the first to use the term energy instead of vis viva in its modern sense. There you go, mini journey over. But if you were curious, in 1845, James Prescott Joule discovered the link between mechanical work and the generation of heat. In 1853, William Rankine coined the term potential energy. The law of conservation of energy was also first postulated in early 19th century and applied to any isolated system. It was also argued for some years whether heat was a physical substance, dubbed the caloric, or merely a physical quantity, such as momentum. These developments led to the theory of conservation of energy, formalized largely by William Thomson, aka Lord Kelvin, as the field of thermodynamics. Thermodynamics aided the rapid development of explanations of chemical processes. It also led to a mathematical formulation of the concept of entropy and the introduction to laws of radiant energy. According to Noether's theorem, the conservation of energy is a consequence of the fact that the laws of physics do not change over time. So, I understand if you just heard all of that and your takeaway was, where's the umbrella? Well, let's get into it. Time to list off all the branches of energy without explaining them at all. You got mechanical, electric, magnetic, chemical, nuclear, elastic, radiant, rest, thermal, sound wave, mechanical wave, ionization, gravitational, and chromodynamic. So, as I promised, I'm not going to explain any of that, but in summary, all living organisms, looking at you, constantly take in and release energy. Due to mass energy equivalence, any object that has mass when stationary, called rest mass, also has an equivalent amount of energy whose form is called rest energy, and any additional energy of any form acquired by the object above, that rest energy will increase the object's total mass just as it increases its total energy. You eat the burger, then it's up to you whether or not you jog or it turns into something else. Human civilization requires energy to function, which it gets from energy sources such as fossil fuels, nuclear fuel, or renewable energy. The Earth's climate and ecosystems processes are driven by the energy the planet receives from the sun, although a small amount is also contributed by geothermal energy, and it gets used on a constant daily basis. The whole thing may seem overwhelming, as it should induce to someone at the prospect of trying to constantly keep the lights on, but something tells me power plant managers just grow numb from it over time. That's also something your senses do. Not literally numb, just to be clear. If that happens to you, be sure to let your doctor know, but more an adaptation, where your haptic inputs of, say, placing your hand on a table will eventually go away if you don't move. You haven't really gone numb, but your brain has just made you blind to the sensation of your hand on the table because nothing has changed, so its continued reporting seems like a waste of time. That's the brain for you, always finding a quick solution to cut back on information processing. Anyway, if there's a proper way to end this thought piece, I've lost it in the sauce. Energy is exhausting. Things are always moving, and the only solace is the numbing sense of familiarity that washes over us all. Perhaps the key to perpetual drainage is keeping things new. Like a child, maybe that'll give us more energy? It couldn't hurt to try. As always, thank you guys so much for checking this out. I wish you nothing but love in your life, and ask you to remember to keep on thinking. Thank you, and see you next time. Peace!